All right, welcome back to episode 3 of the Bonded Banter podcast. Today we'll be covering mental health. I got some stuff around sport, mental health in sport. Joined here by Dan,
Dad,
the great man.
How exciting, because Connor's going to steer the ship today.
We're all in trouble, bumpy ride.
You can, this one will be Connor's baby. It's something that's close to our hearts, obviously, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have either been personally affected by their mental health struggles or have certainly family, friends that are struggling, have struggled, or ultimately made that decision for themselves that it was just all too much.
Yeah.
So, Connor, kick us off, fella.
Well, I reckon a good way to start is a couple of statistics. It's pretty scary ones in here, so...
What do you want to speak specifically around?
Well,
is this a general sort of chat, or are you being specific with?
my ones are specific to sports. I think you've got some that are specific or more general.
Yep.
General to mental health.
Yep.
But yeah, I've got a couple here. They're pretty frightening. So hopefully our chat today can help some people around this sort of stuff.
Or bring some light and some relevance to. I mean, it's very relevant. Don't get me wrong, but you and I, as a father and son, to sit here and have the chat about it. I just think there should be more of it. It doesn't have to be on a podcast. It doesn't have to be in front of a camera. It can be behind closed doors or whatever it might be, but start more conversations and start hard conversations. Park your egos. Park all of the fears that you think and your insecurities, and have conversations with your friends or your loved ones.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you just never know.
Yeah.
You never know what's around the corner.
Yeah, can't tell the future.
So what do you got? Some stats on mental health or suicide? What is it?
I haven't really delved too much in the suicide kind of things. More just the blanket sort of area of mental health. So we got here that 39% of athletes are faced with mental health issues or performance anxiety, and a little bit of suicide stuff. That 7.1% of those have had suicidal thoughts.
7.1%
of that 39.4, which is pretty scary.
That feel pressure.
Yeah, just have mental health issues or performance anxiety in sport. That's 7.1% of that.
Are these stats from an elite level, or is this just a blanket?
That's
what's the snapshot? What's the
semi-pro to elite athletes.
Okay, yeah.
Also got here that 30% of them are women and 25% of them are men. That's taken from student athletes. And that, quickly to touch on that, we'll probably delve into it a bit deeper as we get in, but that all reports from mental scans is that sport is 80% mental and 20% physical. So that's just kind of going to highlight the impact that your mental health can have on your game, personal life.
Totally.
Taking it outside of sport.
Well, we spoke about in episode 2, didn't we, about where you sit with your mental toughness and mental resilience to potentially being the difference becoming a professional or not. So there's a lot of merit in that mental side of things. So you wanted to, or we were speaking, and we'll speak about it now, about you have professional athletes, I think, that you had spoken about that had raised or had made it very public about their mental health struggles.
Yeah, so more recent ones, but we've got Mad Jack Door, Tom Boyd, who was a big one, retired because of it. So Mad Jack, Simone Biles, who's made a comeback, probably the GOAT of gymnastics.
Do you know much about that?
Her story?
Yeah.
Not too much.
Okay.
You?
No, I don't. So that's good. Well done.
And Dane Beams, obviously.
Yep.
Good mate.
Yep.
Our good mate. Cam McCarthy's a pretty big one because he's one that has unfortunately decided to act on the feelings he had. His is a bit of an interesting one because he was delisted in 2020 and then, I guess, had enough. Everything got to him in 2024, so this year.
So he came back but he got delisted and then picked back up.
No, he got delisted.
Yeah. In 2020.
Yeah, and then this year, unfortunately.
So let's talk about the pressure that you believe that an athlete is under. Where does it come from? Does it come from, like we said in episode 2, does it come from the pressures of the parents growing up, the expectation? Where do you think, is it stories that have been told in their heads or themselves that potentially put them in a position of feeling this way?
Yeah, well, in his instance, it's probably a bit different because he's got added pressure from media, which I think it plays a massive part in sport and mental health in sport. Is the pressure that's put on, athletes from the media.
There's a whole nother skill set to being an athlete.
Yeah.
To just your average Joe, because you are in the spotlight.
Yeah.
You are a public figure, so you must accept that and wear that you are in the public eye all the time, and you potentially are looked up to by kids. And if you have the ability to be friends with professional athletes or they're your family or whatever it might be, they're just normal people, having a crack.
Yeah.
And they make the same mistakes that an average Joe would, except they're in the limelight. Does it mean that because they're in the limelight and they're up and they're put on a pedestal by the media or socially, does it mean that those particular people need to have a harder look at themselves to not make those mistakes because they are almost privileged with a position of, I guess, power?
Yeah, well, definitely, I don't think they should have a harder look at themselves. Like, they have every right to make their own mistakes. They just got to learn from them, I guess. But yeah, I think sometimes everyone's a little bit hard on them because they're put in a spotlight.
Yeah,
and they're not given the chance to make a mistake. It's just a mistake, and then you're done.
Is there leeway given to some people because they're young and they do make mistakes? Is there leeway given to them because they're young, or do you think that they should? I know AFL with the drugs policy, they got a 3-strike policy and things like that. I mean, if you're not learning after the first time, I don't know where they can go.
I mean, the 3-strike one's a tricky one because probably 75% of the AFL would do it. It's just the one.
I don't be going making stats like that because who knows?
Probably more. I'll get under there.
Probably more, but that's a social.
Yeah.
That is not that is a social. That is a social dilemma.
Yeah.
That's not a sport dilemma. Like that is, they're just women, men, young people that are out having a good time when they can.
Yeah, but yeah,
that is done socially. Do they have a different responsibility because they are a public figure and they're employed and they're highly paid?
Yeah.
By the clubs through sponsorships and all those sort of things that allow them to live the life that lots of people would like to. Do you reckon they're taking the piss if they have social mishaps?
By the third time, I'd say so. I think they can make a mistake or two, but yeah, by the third, if you get done the third time with the same thing, you're just being a dickhead at that point. Sure, you can lay off the beers and drugs for 10, 15 years for the sake of multi-millions of dollars.
But then let's talk about that, because if you are talking about that and we are touching on mental health issues, have mental health issues in some people has the piss been taken out of mental health because of somebody's misdemeanor? They there blame mental health.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a stance on the mental health term being thrown around. I think I think it's used quite lightly these days. There's being depressed, which can be a mood, but then there's having depression, which is the mental illness. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there's a confusion now between the mood and the mental illness. Some people think just because they're depressed at that point in time that they have depression.
Yeah, because everybody's got emotions and they go up and down, and you can feel shit for 3 months.
Yeah.
But does that make you depressed? We're not psychologists or psychiatrists. Yeah, but we've lived life, and I know we spoke about in Ep 2 that we were going to touch on your personal experiences around mental health from me as a dad. And it was when you had your shoulder injury, you ticked that off and you said, no, I'm going to keep playing. Nothing's going to stop me. Then you broke your jaw at a crucial time, at a pivotal time of your life in terms of trying to have a good crack at it. You break your jaw. I want to speak to you, and I'm sure we have spoken about it before, but we may as well do it on a podcast, that I honestly felt, and I said it to Renee, and I said it to Renee and spoke with Renee about it, that I lived with so much my own anxiety and fear of your mental state after you broke your jaw. And I say that because you didn't really want to enjoy or play footy anymore. You almost gave up on everything. Anything that you loved and enjoyed, you didn't want to do. You put on 12, 14, 15 kilos. Tell me how much you put on.
Well, I got to $112, I think, was the biggest.
Well, that's more than me now.
Yeah, you're pretty short. So.
So that, and then I'm sitting there as your dad, and you're fucking hopeless at answering your phone and messaging back anyway, but I sit there as your dad, not being able to consciously reach you or reach you at all. And I sit there with, I can't even, the feeling, because I've had the phone calls before and I know exactly what it feels like. And any time I couldn't get hold of you. It just took me to those triggering times of getting phone calls about that. And I know how much footy meant to you, how much it is a big part of your life, and how healthy and beneficial it is to be out and having fun for your mental health. Yet I know it just drilled you and you lost it. And then I'm sitting there as your dad going, I don't know what I can do for him. I do all of the conversations and all of the things that I know that I think that you might need, but there was seemed to be nothing coming back at it. And I'm sure Summer will be okay with me speaking about it, because when you're in surgery at the hospital and Summer and I were sitting in the foyer, I think we went and got a coffee, and I was sitting there and I was like, I wonder what this means for him. I wonder if and I'd already started to try and process, because I knew how much it meant to you, if, where that would lead you. And it was almost like a manifestation, or those fears of mine actually were starting to manifest into you being caught in that spiral mentally. So as your dad, I was watching it all unfold, and it was so hard to watch, and I felt so powerless. I'm just like, all I wanted to do was help you and get you out of it. But I don't know, I feel like there's probably only one person that could maybe do that, and that's you. Yeah. So talk to me about, am I wrong of thinking that's where it was at, or was that not the case for you?
Oh, well, I'm like, that was compared to my shoulder, that was way worse, because your shoulder, it's up to you time-wise to when you get back. Like, you can smash out the rehab and get the weights in and work on the stability and all that sort of stuff, but your jaw's just a waiting game. So, you're literally waiting game. I broke my jaw, drove back down from Maroochydore, and then ended up sitting in hospital for, 5 days waiting for surgery.
That was a test of your resilience, even being wheeled into theatre and being about to start. And I remember you just calling me, and not that you could talk very much, but you were just beside yourself, because you were actually wheeled into theatre.
Yeah. And
then wheeled out again.
Yeah. Because
of some gangsters being shot in wherever.
Southport.
I don't know where it was, but so some bloke that's made his own decisions to put himself in that environment, and then you get wheeled out again, and then you're sitting up there again for another day.
Yeah, I was probably, I reckon, 30 seconds away from having the gas mask put on me and going into surgery.
Yeah.
And then I sit in there in the anaesthesia room, maybe 20 minutes by myself. I think they forgot about me, and I yelled, and I was like, "Oh, what's going on?" "Oh, sorry, old mate, some guys come in with the gunshot."
Awesome.
Wheeled back up into my ward.
Yeah, and that's when you called me. So delve into the journey you went through on that, because I'm really interested to understand if I was just thinking the worst, or was there any accuracy to it?
No, well, that's probably the lowest point I've been personally. Just after surgery, my face is swollen. I felt quite insecure, because my face was as big as a house, and couldn't really talk. Liquid diet for 6 weeks. Probably did me. Actually, I wasn't fat. I wasn't fat yet.
No.
So
no. Well, let's not say fat. You'd put on weight.
Big boned. Yeah. Anyway, so Yeah, and then I don't know. I just kind of lost love for footy. I don't think that was through the injury. Like it wasn't because I broke my jaw and I was like, oh, what if I do it again? I think it was the reason like I put on a little bit of weight and all that sort of stuff is because I couldn't do anything while I was recovering from my jaw. Like the first couple months, I said you couldn't run, you couldn't do anything, liquid diet. Like I was just kind of only got back to work after 2 months or so. So I got in the habit of doing nothing. And when you get in a habit, it's just so hard to break. So then time finally comes and rolls around that I can start doing stuff again. And yeah, I just didn't really want to, just because of those habits that you build up over that time of sitting at home, eating soup and smoothies.
But what makes you spiral? What are you saying? Your good habits were broken, and then you'd formed shit ones.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you formed. What are that? So it takes 28 days to form a habit, and it can take 2.8 seconds, I reckon, to break them.
Yeah.
So you developed poor choices in habits.
Yeah.
Which then led you again to spiraling. Would you say you spiraled? Like, tell me, would you say that we spoke about depressed or depression before?
Yeah.
I would have said you were depressed.
Yeah, I don't think.
Or did you have depression?
I think from a physical state, once I started to put that weight on, I'd say my mental health wasn't great. I wouldn't say I had mental health like problems. I wouldn't say I had depression, because I think that's another level from what I was. But I think it was maybe a slow spiral, like as the weight started to go on. I think I was in and out of work as well. I think I changed jobs a couple of times. I couldn't really find myself again after, because I wasn't playing footy throughout the rest of that season. So yeah, I maybe lost my identity a little bit. I wasn't playing footy, and I wasn't really working, and then I had to find another job. Yeah, maybe a slow spiral, but I wouldn't go as far to say I had depression.
So you think that my fears were not real?
Yeah, well,
do you think that I was thinking and seeing the worst thing, but you didn't actually feel that yourself?
Yeah, I always, as a parent, you're probably always going to think of the worst case.
Well, I am going to think of the worst case based on my past experiences with mental health and people paying the ultimate price with their life.
Yeah.
So that's where I went to, and I was watching it unfold, and in my eyes, which is an uneducated in terms of the study, but I've lived it and seen it unfold. It was, you were just ticking all of those boxes to then, it was such a hard, like, emotional thing. Like would you say it was probably a year
from
that you were like that? Or probably about a year, I reckon.
Until I found
your mojo again? Maybe longer, actually. Because you think that there was no pre-season footy, then you didn't do a pre-season, then you sort of played at surface a little bit halfway, like at the start.
I started going, like, after Chrissy to 2023, I went to, like, Burleigh or Cooley, Carrara, Burleigh or whatever.
Oh, mate, it was incredible. You had so many bloody football club preseason t-shirts.
I was trying to get back into fitness. I just needed some training singlets.
You'd just done the rounds. You'd really pimped yourself out before the first game.
And then ended up back at surface.
Yeah. So it's probably longer than a year.
Well,
I think that you felt that, and I'm sitting there just I felt so helpless for you that I couldn't do anything, and anything that I tried to do for you it felt like it was met with resistance from you because you were fine.
Yeah, I probably wasn't fine, but I didn't think you probably thought I was worse off than what I was.
Well, for sure. For sure.
So I wasn't fine because I wasn't really myself. I wasn't unhappy. Like I was still with was with Summer. Still happy because of that. Had a lot of free time.
Yeah, and I mean we go back to your habits because they're just so. Your habits are you. So if there's the saying, show me somebody's habits and I'll show you the person. And that couldn't be more true for you because you had your habits before you broke your jaw, which were really good, healthy habits. You were, in a really good space. Then you transformed to habits that weren't healthy.
Yeah.
And then your life takes a different course because of your poor choice in habits.
Yeah.
So what for you was the catalyst to then change your habits again?
Well, there was a specific moment. I remember I was in Maya trying some clothes on.
Oh, tell me, yeah.
And my gyno was that.
What's that?
You know when you got stubborn fat on your nipples?
No, I don't.
Well, anyway,
what's it called?
The listeners and viewers will understand.
What's it called?
Gyno.
Right.
Anyway, it's just like stubborn fat. Obviously, if you're a bit fatter, it's not stubborn. But now I just have it because I was fat. But it was like a full
fatty
boob.
Deposits around your nipple.
Yeah, so and it started there and it was just all the way around.
Well, then you had side boob.
Had a tit.
Whoa.
Pretty much. So then I remember in the change rooms with Summer and I was getting changed. I'm like, no, this is just no good. I reckon that was when it started.
You looking at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah, that's what ticked me over to start again.
And that was Christmas.
Yeah, probably just, I guess if we're shopping, probably just after maybe.
Last year?
No, because last year I had a full 2023. 2023.
Yep.
It would have broken it 2022, I think.
So, and then all of a sudden, your mind and you click into gear.
Yeah, I wasn't a straight click like that. It was pretty hard to get back into good habits and that sort of stuff.
So tell me about what were you doing, or what was your mindset around changing your habits?
What processes did I take to?
Yeah, how did you then transform yourself to go back? Was it because you knew you could do it?
Yeah,
you had done it before.
I could get back to what I was like before. I signed back up at the gym. I started going with you a little bit more. Got a job at Sporties, which worked well because the gym was on the way to work.
Yeah, yeah.
Jump into All Ball Sports for all your sports supplies.
Well, I'll be hitting them up for a sponsorship.
Yeah. Cricket bat, return?
No, not for that.
But, yeah, got back into that habit. It's I was eating so much chocolate.
Chocolate? I don't know where that comes from.
Probably mum's sweet tooth.
Yeah, it's not my gig. I'm not.
But, I don't know. I was just eating so much chocolate, not doing anything. So I started going to the gym again.
Summer like chocolate?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
Cookie Monster.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're determined to change your habits. So your mindset changes to get back to healthy habits.
Yeah. Yeah, I just started going back to the gym again, meal prepping, eating a little bit better. Probably portion sizes as well.
So you look at yourself in the mirror and think, Jesus, that's not good.
Love handles and side boobs.
So then you go, I've had enough of this. Enough's enough. You want to make a change.
Yeah.
And so you make a change. Your mindset changes straight away. You take action to go to the gym. You sign up and you start going to the gym. You're committed to that. You then meal prep, so there's no temptations. You stop eating chocolate, or as much as you were. I don't know if you still nail it, but
healthy balance.
And then you start the journey of losing all of that weight. And you got to be so proud of yourself because you did it pretty, I wouldn't say easily, but you certainly ripped back in and showed obviously the character that you have in terms of being able to get back up off the canvas and go again.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you should be awfully proud. Like I'm proud of you for like being able to achieve that. And it's not the first time that you've achieved something after somebody or there was any doubt.
Yeah.
Not that I wouldn't have doubted you could do it, but it just all comes back to how determined you are to do it, right? But I'd like to get your thoughts around why it got to that way, and it all comes back down to what you're forming.
Yeah, it's just got to keep the good habits.
But they're just healthy, and that's how we're built.
Yeah, well, life's so much better when you're like fitter, healthier, happier.
But if you're fit if you're healthy and fit in your body, it goes a hell of a long way to being fit mentally. The way that you show up mentally.
Yeah.
And then it gradually, not gradually, but it does show up positively in all other areas of your life.
Yeah.
I mean, I can only speak because we're men, but that's one of the most important things for us.
Yeah.
Is getting those structures and stability around the habit and making them. So because I'd spoken to Summer like after your jaw, like when you're probably 6 months, a year in, and we had a chat because of my concerns, because you wouldn't answer your fucking phone and you wouldn't reply to text. And then, and I'm like, am I being am I helicoptering the shit out of him? Am I thinking the worst and it's all okay, or do I have a real reason to be concerned with him? So I've messaged Summer on, I had a chat with her maybe on Instagram or something, and I just said, hey, how's Connor going? I can't get hold of him, blah, blah, blah. And we had a chat about like you losing your mojo. Like, why is it lost? And Summer was questioning whether you'd lost your mojo because of her.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys had spoken about that, and I was like, well, he's one of his greatest support systems. So I couldn't imagine that would be, and I don't know if you were so in your head and in a rut that you were pushing her away or whatever it might be, but I needed to have a chat to her to see if my thoughts and feelings were valid. around where you were actually at.
Yeah. Well, she helped me a lot on that journey back to finding myself again. But I mean, this is not to blame Summer at all, but like there's like a girlfriend weight like that a lot of people do put on.
What's that, like the comfortable?
Yeah, you just get comfortable. I think that might have been a little thing as well. Like, I'm not saying it's a bad thing at all. Like, I wouldn't be where I am today without Summer, and I wouldn't be back to myself without Summer. Like, she motivated me to get back to being fit again and playing footy. But yeah, I think it's just being comfortable. Like, a lot of people, happens to a lot of people. Mine, I think, correlated time-wise with breaking my jaw and that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because the person that you are before the relationship, it's sometimes it's easy to then get caught into somebody that you're not during the relationship, if you're putting on weight. Like, you lose all of those fundamentals of yourself maybe a little bit, which then can affect your relationship, because you're not really the person that you were when you met.
Yeah.
Which can, lead to all sorts of relationship issues. But from the mental health side of things, give us your take and give me some of your tips and takeaways of somebody that is now 21 that experienced that sort of stuff as a young man. What did you do? What did you lean on? What did you turn to? Because you certainly didn't fucking lean on your parents.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was just you. There was a fair few people that had a crack at me I remember Pop had a crack at me.
Well, mate, I just, before you answer that, let's talk about that, because your grandfather called me and I spoke to you about it, and he called me beside himself in tears. And the only other time I'd ever heard him that upset on a phone was when your uncle took his own life. And I spoke, and he and I were crying on the phone to each other, because he felt the same. He felt the same feelings that I did, because of that situation. And he and I knew exactly what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, like it. And I just said to him, I said, I know exactly what you're saying. I feel exactly the same way. How do we help him? And then you don't know.
Yeah.
And he was so, the level of emotion and the waves of emotion that you go through when somebody is suffering and they don't want your help, or you can't help them, or you feel lost, there's a big sense of anger towards that person that you want to help. It's fucking mental that you feel frustrated and angry that they can't just see what you can. And I know you say that you didn't think that you were in that position and you didn't feel like that. And I'm questioning whether my thought process was wrong to think that you were struggling. But the reality is that all of the evidence that I had based on my experiences were valid for me. And then you get your grandfather and your grandmother and on both sides, and your mum and all these people that care about you, like, who else did Al Mitchell.
Yeah.
Who works for living. Like these people. So I'm sitting there going, well, I can't be wrong.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was such a hectic thing because all Pop did was bring relevance back to the experiences of your uncle at 21.
Yeah.
Or not even before he was 21.
Yeah. I'd never say that you felt wrong because like you'd want to feel that way because maybe the one time you don't feel that way or you think, oh, no, they're okay, I'm just overreacting, that might be the time that you should feel that way. So you never want to not feel like that, and you always want to like check up on people. It's just, I guess, on me and on other like people in my shoes to maybe step back and see that how other people are seeing and looking at you.
But you can't see the forest from the trees. Like you're not, or I'm saying you because that's what we're talking about, and I'm sure there's other people out there that would experience the same thing. You don't know what, like if you're not have sound mental clarity, everything could be a blur or not seem kosher or everything's, should be right. Like there's nothing for anyone to worry about. But living with that fear of somebody you think should be on suicide watch, that is such a hard thing to live with, and I'm telling you, it consumed me, and I know that I showed up to everyone else, like in my relationship and stuff. I know that it stole a lot of wholeness out of me for that period of time, because all I could think about was that, and it didn't afford me the to have the ability to show up for other people that I loved in my life, because I was so fixated on one component of the love that I have in my life, and then I'm neglecting others. So there's so many variables about that, and you're never not going to worry about that. However, it's so complex because it's not just about the person that is battling. That person battling is fair and it's valid that they're battling away, but there's such a big picture outside of that. And then if somebody does choose to pay that ultimate price, we sit there and we say it's selfish and it's fucked, and then we've got to pick up the pieces after they've made that decision. And I don't know because I haven't done it clearly, but if those people knew who had taken their own life what effect it has had on other people, and if they have some sort of mental clarity, then they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, well, we've always said it's not a conscious thought. Like
you are sick.
Like, there's no way. Like
you are crook.
There's if you wait another 10 seconds or just think about what you're about to do, there is no chance you could possibly do that because of the heartache that you cause yourself, like what you're missing out on, the people you love, all for such a small portion of your life.
You change everyone's lives forever.
Oh yeah.
Like you just do. And if you are struggling, I've never struggled to that point, so I can't speak about it from a level of, thinking like that. But you've got to be in a different place.
Yeah.
Haven't you? And feeling like you are a burden or whatever it might feel like. blows my mind that is the only answer.
Yeah, well, you're just going to go around in circles, I reckon, trying to figure out the thought process behind it, because it's not, you can't have a clear mind and do that.
You just can't. Like, we acknowledge that, but I just,
stuff you leave behind.
You know, if you think about, Chriso, then who I feel very comfortable with knowing that would be such a big regret for him.
Yeah, definitely.
For that. So, like, and it shits me to tears thinking about it all the time. I honestly think that there still needs to be a lot of healing done by a lot of people, because I think that there's been a lot of stuff that has just been pushed aside by a lot of us that need to actually sit there and process it a lot more. I don't think I've given it as much attention that it probably needs. I don't know if you have, but it's just the fallout. I was speaking to a lady a couple of weeks ago, and it was we were talking about periods in your life and what had transpired to make you feel a certain way of guilt or whatever it might be. And one of them that I brought up with her was me having to tell you about Chriso, about going around when you were at mum's and then sitting on your bed and breaking that news to you. And she said, "Why do you feel guilty?" And I said that I feel guilty because, like, I broke his heart.
Yeah.
Like, I actually, we were like pretty upset together, and I felt this responsibility for changing your life forever on somebody that you looked up to. So, and she sort of said to me, she goes, you didn't make those decisions, so you can't be responsible and feel that guilt. It's not your guilt to feel. And I said, but I'm the one that has done that to Connor. Like, I'm sitting there and I've changed his life forever.
Yeah.
And she says to me, you didn't make those decisions. That was not your choice to actually take. You haven't taken your own life. That was his decision. So you can't place your guilt by delivering the information to Connor. And I had to sit there and process that because in my eyes, it's something that I've held on to for a long time, is, breaking that news to you when you're, 15, 14 or 15?
15, I think.
Like, I felt such a responsibility to changing the landscape of your life because of somebody else's decision that was such a pivotal part in your life and had such a big impact on you and was always there for you. And then I'm sitting there and going, and when you were struggling, I'm sitting there in my head thinking, he's had somebody that's almost a mentor for him.
Oh, third dad, I reckon.
Yeah, that is such a strong pillar in his life that has taken his. What does that say to him? That somebody that he saw as a superhero, let's say, has made a choice to not be around anymore because he was struggling. And when you're now struggling, I'm like, fuck me. Does he see that is the way out or the way forward? And yeah, it kept going. I just kept playing that, and then I'd become so obsessed with reaching out to you, and then I'm getting nothing, and then I'm like, I'm just sit there waiting for that like a phone call. And I'd spoken to Mum here and there about it, and then sometimes when Mum would call, I'd see the phone and I just didn't want to answer it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, is this it? And then pluck up the courage, and I'm like, hey, have you spoken to Connor? And she's like, yeah, I've spoken to him a little bit, but it's interesting that's what can be left behind by somebody that makes that decision, because I now live in fear of those sort of situations or those experiences.
Yeah, well, I'm like, I mean, you never have to worry about me doing that, because you see, like, I've seen it on two hands now, like with Pete and Chriso, like what gets left behind and the broken people that it leaves behind. It's just like you can't fathom how much of an impact that like one decision would have on such a big amount of people. Like I remember when we had Chriso's funeral at the church in Reedy Creek, like there was a whole hall.
I drive past it nearly every day.
Yeah, but there's a whole hall full of people, like packed.
Yep.
And that wouldn't even cover half the people that would have been impacted by Chriso's decision.
What? Give me your thoughts and feelings around the decision that he made as a 15-year-old who was such a pivotal part of your life and very at an impressionable time. Give me an idea, or give us an idea of what, your thought process was around that.
Yeah, well, I was incredibly sad, obviously. Like, I wouldn't say, like, I wasn't impressioned by it because, like, I mean, it's easy for me to say because I've never been and hopefully will never be in that position, but, like, I could never do something like that. But just seeing, like, the heartbreak it caused everyone that knew him.
But what did it mean to you? Like, how did you process it as a young man?
Not very well. I mean,
could you make sense of it, or because you were
way.
young, you didn't? Do you think ignorance is bliss a little bit? Because you were so young, you didn't have to or need to make sense of it?
Yeah, well,
you just saw it as a loss?
Saw it as a loss. I think the fucked thing about suicide is that the more you try and make sense of it, the more it doesn't make sense.
Say that again. That is outstanding. Yeah.
So,
that is really good.
Yeah, but yeah, especially and then being a young kid as well. Like, I remember after the funeral, we're at the wake, and then I was just like playing with all my mates, like on the footy field, or probably would have been footy season at the time, like just as normal. But then I don't know. It probably takes like a couple of days to set in, and I remember like going around to Billy's and seeing him. That was pretty hard. I think, do we go to some like a pub on Chevron or something like that as well to see? Maybe I think, but it was before the funeral. Maybe the day after. Like we heard the news of like Matt Willis and Swanee and all that. We went to a pub on Chevron and everyone was just like so rocked by it.
We went to the BT that night. I went to the BT that night, and this is very little bit woo-woo, but I'll speak about it. So we went to the BT. I was driving over the Gateway Bridge on my way to an appointment, to a meeting, and I got the news, and I just pulled over on the side of the Gateway. And in my head, I was like, I'll deal with it later. I've got to go to this appointment. And I kept driving. And I was just like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
One of your good mates is just not here now.
Yeah.
So I turned around and I sent a message to our group chat, and I said, boys, horrible news, Chris O is not with us anymore. And then the phone started ringing, and then we all met at the BT. So we're at the pub having a beer, just like in just a world of hurt. And I felt somebody lean around me and grab my ass. And there was no one there. And I'm looking around and I was like, I was like, and I was standing beside Matt or something. I was like, did you just do that? And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was just like, and I closed my eyes and I just went, you motherfucker. Like, it was, yeah, it was.
That's a pretty fucked thing to go through.
Yeah, so. Anyway. And I was like, you bastard. Like, right now. Like, it's. I don't know that you'll, like, I don't think. I don't think you'll ever get over it.
No, well, it's.
I don't reckon I'll ever. I mean, you get better at dealing with it. But I don't think
it's not dealing with it though. It's just
accepting it. I don't know. Like, you get better with time of doing it. And I was just like, he was there, 100%, and he's grabbed me on the arse like he would. The old reach around with his long arms. I was like, fuck. Just to purely let me know that he was there, but yeah, I'm pleased and I'm interested, and it's interesting because when you spoke about, because there's that copycat syndrome that people speak of when that sort of stuff happens. But yeah, but it's just so final, isn't it? Like, that's. And there's just nothing that comes from it, and there's nothing good that comes from it. Like, and as you said, like, you wonder why, and you go, oh well, I definitely know that there was a lot of relationship struggle, him doing and froing, and that's their stories for another day. But his intention was very much to say a big fuck you to someone.
Send a big message.
And his message to that person was his life. So, yeah, it blows my mind. And like I was saying, like before, I'll read some stats that I have on the suicide. So suicide is a leading cause of death for Australians between the ages of 15 and 49. There's an average of 8 Australians that take their life every day, and 75% of them are male. It works out to 45 men a week, fathers, sons, brothers, who died of suicide. 45 men a week take their lives to suicide. And there's a stat here that says it's not restricted to just that, because men aged 85 who take their lives, that's the highest specific cause of death in men 85 is suicide as well. So, like, it's a real thing. And then, we just spoke about the relationship pressures of men, taking their lives. So, this was according to Australian Men's Health Forum, that a third of male suicides come down to a combination of spousal issues and legal issues, and those legal issues are based around custody of their children. So there's 24.7% of suicides have been put down to, so pretty much 25% of spousal issues have come down to people taking their life through suicide.
Yep.
And then the 10.5% have taken their lives through not being able to see their children.
Yeah.
So it's they're pretty damning sort of stats, because we speak about Chriso, and I'm very confident in saying that some of his big struggles were around that relationship side of things, relationships to himself as well.
Yeah,
because he wasn't kind to himself.
Right.
Probably his hardest critic, right?
Well, it's like so often it's like those sort of people that always put others first and always looking out for others, but never look out for themselves.
Totally.
Like such a selfless person, but you know, sometimes it pays to be a little bit selfish sometimes and focus on you for a bit. But I think because you put yourself out there as that person that everyone can go to, you might not feel like you can go to anyone else because you're that person for everyone.
You are that guy.
Yeah.
And then you battle away yourself.
But you're just in your own head constantly if you're doing that. That's why you always got to talk to someone, and someone's always open for you.
But the bonehead worked in the mental health facility.
Yeah. Figure it out.
Like, it's just all swept under the rug, isn't it? Like you just never know.
Yeah.
Just
always got to check in on. Be mates, you don't have to be mates with them. It could be anyone.
But checking in, and there's checking in, and then there's checking in, isn't there? But, yeah, no. So that was that's pretty powerful stuff, and we just need to try and do more around it.
Yeah, it's definitely getting better, but until the percentage and numbers are zero.
Try and get it down, that's for sure. Yeah. But is there anything else that you think you need to touch on?
Squeeze. I think we've covered it all.
You think so? That's a pretty a pretty intense sort of chat, isn't it? But I think it's sad, it's frustrating. We need to do more.
Yeah, and there's always help out there, whether you feel safe enough going to someone you know or someone you don't know.
Sometimes it can be the people that you don't know.
Yeah, there's avenues out there, Beyond Blue, all that sort of stuff. So
Lifeline, they're all there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sometimes it's too hard to talk to someone you're really close with, fear of judgment and that sort of stuff.
Well, I think that ultimately can be one of our biggest killers as men is judgment, feeling judged.
But yeah, that fear is just, what do you say, false evidence appearing real.
Correct, yep.
No one's ever going to judge you for feeling like that. So,
and then you can feel the fear and do it anyway. Yeah. So just get it done. But I think that'll do us for now. Thanks for listening. We will catch you on the next one. Look after yourselves.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Take care.